All right. Well, greetings and welcome to Drones Take Flight. At 10 o'clock, it looks like most of our participants are here. I'm sure some will check in late. I know we have people checking in all the way from California to Texas to the East Coast. So, what's that?
We even got one from Poland.
Poland, really? Wow. Our first international customer. That's a first. That's cool. I wonder how they found out about this. But anyway, welcome to Drones Take Flight. I want to let you know right off the bat, this is not meant to take place of our educator workshops that we do, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a few minutes. More of a webinar, informational session type thing, especially before we start going back into the fall school mode, depending on how that's going to go. Whole goal here is to give you resources and links and places you can go first. Okay. Right off the bat, my name is Tom Biller. I'm what we call the Director of DRONETECH. Everybody has to have a title. That's mine, one of mine. My background is I'm the avionics specialist here at Northland for manned aircraft and the unmanned side. I started here in 2012, so I've been here about a little over 8.5 years. My background before that was the United States Air Force. I'm a retired avionics troop from the Air Force. I've worked, all kinds of different airplanes from the ancient F-4 Phantoms all the way through every model of the C-130 you can think of, and even the C-17s. So I was pretty fortunate to have a broad career background there with the Air Force. As soon as I retired, I took on a job as a defense contractor for the Air Force, so it kind of went hand in hand. I got to continue working on the airplanes as a civilian, which is a much better deal than being military, by the way. Yeah, so back in 2013, we applied for our first National Science Foundation grant, DRONETECH. It was approved. We got granted a $300,000 grant, and DRONETECH was born. From that point, we've moved on to get another small grant, and now that we have become the National Center of Autonomous Technologies, which we're fortunate here today to have our director of the NCAT, John Beck. But before I get to you, John, I know you're in a real quick rush. I'm going to introduce Zach Nicklin, my co-host here today. Go ahead, Zach.
Hi, my name is Zach Nicklin. I'm the UAS program manager here at Northland Community and Technical College. I'm also the co-PI and director of UAS for the National Center of Autonomous Technologies. I've been at Northland for about the same time as Tom here for about 7.5, 8 years now. And just anything unmanned aircraft related goes across my desk. So.
And Zach is our true unmanned aerial system specialist here.
So got my start back in the Army back in 2005 and kind of going since then. For the most part today, I'm going to serve as the moderator. So anybody has any questions, any issues, anything like that, I'll be monitoring the chat and doing any responses there that I don't pass on to Tom Biller. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Zach. And John, if you're willing, if you want to take a quick step up and introduce yourself.
Yeah, you bet, Tom. Thank you very much. Glad to be here today. Glad to be supporting the DRONETECH workshops hosted out of the Northland Aerospace campus. And what I look at is a gold standard in unmanned aircraft systems. I've had the longest standing program at Northland Community and Technical College that trains aviation maintenance technicians, specifically unmanned aircraft system technicians on the advanced technology that we're seeing in the aerospace industry. As we look at autonomous technologies, I think it's a very, very exciting future right now for where this technology is going, how it's transforming the way society lives, works, travels, and learns through research as we look at the advancement of unmanned aircraft systems, which is the focus of today's workshop, but also a lot of related disciplines when we look at it from the technician education standpoint of what's going on in the automotive industry with connected and automated vehicles, driverless car technology, the marine industries. We're seeing a lot of really, really exciting opportunities out there for students, for career opportunities and things that we need to consider, which is really what the NSF ATE program is all about, which has been the funding source for launching DRONETECH and most recently the National Center for Autonomous Technology. It's really focused on the 2-year technician education programs and that technician education that's going to be required to take advantage of these opportunities and drive the future workforce, the highly skilled technical workforce. That's kind of the buzzword or buzz phrase, I guess, that's going to be needed to really address the future future careers and opportunities that are out there. So excited to be here today. Excited to be supporting Tom Biller, who's really the leader of the Drone Tech initiative as a whole. Again, what I look at as the gold standard in technician education around unmanned aircraft systems. So thank you, Tom, for letting me do a brief intro here, and I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thanks, John. I know you got places to go. You got a lot of zooming you got to do. All right, so let's kind of real quick look at what we're, oh, right off the bat, the clicker's not going to work. Yep, it's on. That's all right. I'll do it the old-fashioned way. Maybe. We already are. We appeared. Oh, there we go. Okay, now it's working. Okay. Sorry about that. By the way, the room we're standing in is a pretty unique room. It's a very highly technological room. It's a laboratory that's designed to be obviously what we're doing right now, have students within here working on projects, and also people like you can actually Zoom or video in and be a part of the class. And this is kind of where we're heading. This is the first time we've done a Zoom presentation in this room, so we are trying to work out some glitches. Hopefully it's all gonna go pretty smooth. But getting into the presentation here, what's the big deal about drones? I think John pretty much just said a mouthful about the same thing I was gonna talk about. Obviously everybody knows drones are huge now, okay? And you can see there on the right, the growth. Those are just the 5 main industries. There's many more applications. Law enforcement is a good example. Package delivery is becoming bigger. Or, you know, drones are going to take over, basically. You can see it coming. So, Drone Tech, who are we? It actually is an acronym that stands for Discover Revolutionary Opportunities in New and Emerging Technology. Okay, Drone Tech. So that's where our name comes from. And kind of a funny story behind that, when we were first applying for this grant back in 2013, myself and John John was the PI and I was the co-PI. And our mentors and a lot of the people in NSF were kind of putting pressure on us not to use that term drone, because people did not like that term because it's not really an accurate term for unmanned aerial systems. But we kind of stuck to our guns, and we're glad we did, because let's face it, the only term you hear pretty much out there is drone. And everybody immediately knows what that means when you're talking about drones. So we stuck to our guns, and I'm glad we did, because drone tech sounds a whole lot better than UAS tech. That's just me. Okay, so like John was saying, our main focus is K through 12 and 2-year post-secondary educators and students. Okay, so what we have done since 2013, we held our first educator workshops. Okay, the drone build, that's where we started. A pre-packaged kit, about 1,000 pieces. A very intensive 3-day workshop. It was actually recognized as college credits or professional development, because that's how intense it was. We got very detailed into the build, the components, how they all work together, getting in, you know, looking at the flight computer, all that kind of stuff, and actually trying to fly this thing, which we found to be a unique experience on its own. Not the easiest thing in the world to fly. Okay. Last year, about this time, they discontinued that kit. And the company we were working with was Parallax. Some of you may know them from the robotics industry. They are a bunch of educators with robotics background, and they make kits, various kits and pieces for schools to use in their programs. They decided to get into the drone thing, came up with a pretty well-engineered kit, and it went pretty great until last year. They decided the sales weren't there and people are kind of moving on from that type of process, and they discontinued the kits. The good news is we bought everything they had left, so we can still on a case-by-case basis offer the drone build. And for educators, that's a 3-day intensive workshop on location. For the kids, we would run it in 2 days for the summer camp. Okay, so we can still do that, if we have to. But what we're kind of getting towards now, we're kind of shifting gears in the drone tech world. Like I said, this is not what we call, you'll see educator workshops, DT 1 and 2. Drone Tech 1 is not what we're doing right now. And Drone Tech 1 would ideally be, everybody would be here right now, and we would be having a 3-day seminar on everything we're going to talk about as far as the STEM drones. So we're actually shifting directions. We're going to the STEM drones. So we're looking at skills like, which we'll talk about later, the 3D printing, the CAD software, coding, that's a big thing. And, all the different types of flying versus line of sight versus FPV, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where we're going with it. And DT2, we actually just held the virtual version of that in June. Some of you may have attended that. Again, that was not the ideal way to do it. Ideally, everybody would come in, we would have gone through everything we talked about, the ground prep, the flight software, all that. We would actually went out into the field and flown some of these drones, process some imagery, bring it back, do the geospatial thing. And that's actually called drones and geospatial applications. As far as the STEM summer camps, each of these DT1 and DT2 would have basically the educator side, so that'd be a 3-day thing, and the summer camps are going to typically be a 2-day thing for the kids. And we typically like to do that all in the same week. In fact, we're kind of feeling lonely here today because this is what we always affectionately call Drone Week here at Northland. During this week, starting on Monday, we're busy from Monday through Friday with the educators and the kids. So it's typically a very intense week. Now I'm basically standing in an empty room with my partner in crime, Zach. So it's quite a different feeling, which I'm sure you've all experienced yourselves. As far as distance options, obviously we're at a time now where distance options are kind of on the forefront for everybody. We are looking at that, which is one of the reasons we're doing this presentation in this room today. We are looking at ways to develop kits that we could ship out to individual teachers or whoever that could run small group activities while we host them from here. So we are looking at things like that. And one of our huge goals of Drone Tech is to develop what we call trainers, train the trainer thing. Okay, so ultimately we would bring you in here for an educator workshop on Drone Tech 1 for, let's say. We would train you up. We would certify you as a Drone Tech trainer. At that point, wherever you're at, back at your school, you could host a Drone Tech workshop, and we would support you with the equipment. We would either bring the equipment or ship the equipment to you, and at least one of us would come along to help you through that first presentation. So that's kind of our goal, our long-term plan for all of this is to not just have us be the Drone Tech people, but develop a network of Drone Tech people. Because the whole goal here is to get this technology down to every kid, all the way down into grade school. Okay, because that's how important this stuff is. We're back to this again. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we'll kind of jump right in. Oh, I think I skipped a slide here. Okay, so our agenda today. Obviously, we're going to start, like I said, this is a very, very broad overview. We could spend like a complete day on the anatomy of a drone. Okay, so we're going to definitely be brushing over a lot of this stuff. Part 107, again, we could spend 4 solid days talking about part 107 just by itself. This is more selfish on our part, but we do like to eat. So we are going to take a little bit of a break at lunch, about half an hour, and we'll have a rolling slide deck planned for you just with some pictures and stuff. As we go through, we will try to take little breaks here and there because nature calls and that kind of thing. So, after lunch, we're going to get into drone operations and best practices. Okay, so we're going to talk, you'll find, especially when Zach starts talking about 107, that there's not a whole bunch of standardization on how to go about doing things. Okay. But best practices, you can never go wrong by doing things the best or safest possible way. finally, we will get into kind of the main focus here today for myself, leading into what's going to become Drone Tech 1 is the STEM drones. Okay, many of you have probably heard of these little guys, the Tello, the Parrot Mambo. Those are the kind of the two we're going to focus on today, and the amazing capabilities these little guys have and what you can actually do with them. Okay, so drones is one thing, but how am I going to pay for it is another. Okay, so we're going to give you a bunch of resources on this. Everything, you're going to see a bunch of links as we go through the slides here today, and I'm going to be going back and forth between some of the websites and the slides. You don't have to try to keep track of all the sites I'm going to, because I am going to provide all this show and all the links, even more that are on the slides, that more than you can imagine. Okay, this is like a rabbit hole. Once you start going into drones and all things drones, it's very easy to get lost. Okay. I've, over the years, compiled a really good, what I think are good links from anything from how to build a drone to coding to everything. And curriculum, free curriculum sources, canned curriculums, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to mention something right up front though. We ran into a problem on our last workshop of surveys, the dreaded survey. Nobody likes to take the surveys, we get that. But being part of NSF, that's a huge part of our report card is getting our surveys back. Okay, so what we're going to do after this workshop is Chelsea will be emailing you our survey, and as you do the survey and we get that back, we're going to email you the links for all the materials we have here today and a little certificate saying you graduated. Not that that'll do anything for you, but it just looks cool. Okay, so then big thing that comes with all these drones is competitions. Like anything else, robotics has competitions. Now drones have some competitions. We're going to talk about two. One in particular that we've actually hosted and participated in, and one that is actually coming online this year. So that'll be interesting. And then at the end of the day, we're going to, anybody who wants to hang around, myself, Zach, and we're going to bring in our geospatial specialist, Steve Sorensen. We're going to kind of form a panel and we'll just be open to any discussion or questions. So that's kind of the plan for the day.